All right, so a lot of talk about this whole overarching situation here. So I'm going to break everything down, analyze every single fight, every interaction. Blackbeard versus Boa, Blackbeard versus Rayleigh, S-Hawk versus Blackbeard, Koby versus Boa, all that and more in this video. So stay tuned. And if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. I appreciate it. So we start off with the siege of Amazon Lily. We see that there's a vice admiral there, Yamakaji, and they sent two Seraphims, S-Snake and S-Hawk, to seemingly capture Boa Hancock. I'm not actually really sure who's supposed to be controlling the Seraphims there. I'm going to assume maybe it's Yamakaji. It could be Koby as well. But those two Seraphims, Koby and Yamakaji, is what they thought was going to be able to capture Boa, which is very interesting considering what happens, which we'll get into later. Then, obviously, this all kind of gets a wrench thrown into it because Blackbeard also shows up, which basically turns the situation from bad to worse. Blackbeard says he's come for Boa. He specifically wanted to come and take her devil fruit, actually, which is an interesting note to say the least. I won't let the Navy have your power, so he thought she was going to lose to the Navy. He wanted to take the power first. We then see some crazy ass dialogue from Kennery Devon and Vasco Shot. Don't forget, these guys were in level 6 of Impel Down for a fucking reason. Kennery Devon is known to take the heads of beautiful ladies and put them in a collection. She wants to do the same here with Hancock. We also have Vasco Shot, who is insinuating some very, very dastardly deeds here. He says, come on, don't you want to take her back with us alive so we can be good friends with her, with that little heart that would have added. So you know what that means. So both of them want Boa Hancock for her physical appearance in one way, shape, or form. And Blackbeard's pretty much all right with it. All he cares about is getting the devil fruit first. He says she's all yours as long as I get those powers. We then see Blackbeard start to use his Quake powers, taking out some of the fodder Marines who he says he's not there for. They don't mean anything to him. Yamakaji acting as if if he got clearance here, it would have mattered. They're getting slaughtered regardless. You then get a situation where Blackbeard is now screaming out for Boa to come out, fight him, come out here. Why are you hiding? Koby then says, I suppose it was inevitable that pirates would try to assimilate the former warlords. Please, Hancock, the Navy does not want to fight you, says Koby. We'll simply take you into custody and leave, I promise. Let us handle him, sister, says Boa's two sisters. Don't get full of yourself, Koby, so-called hero. Boa says, this is nonsense. I will not belong to anyone. I follow no man's orders. It seems that she takes a step to the battlefield. Now, what's super interesting about this is that when we cut back to the battlefield, we see that she's basically just incapacitated all these people. Like, she has used her slave arrows. They've turned to stone. And she's taken out Yamakaji. Helmeppo was turned to stone. All these guys were turned to stone, and it does actually look like Koby does have the control over the pacifista here because he yells out to S-Hawk to stop, because obviously if S-Hawk started slashing, all of them were gonna be clapped up. The thing that I wanted to highlight though about this interaction before we get into Blackbeard and what happened with him and S-Hawk and what happened to Blackbeard and Boa is, in this whole situation here, we understand that Koby was the last Marine standing, and he wasn't affected by Boa's abilities. Now, we don't really get to see what happened. Did she hit him with her mellow beam and he just no-sold it or what? But for whatever reason, he was able to avoid the ailments. Maybe he is like Luffy and isn't affected by this, the lust tendency. But he does have visible blood on his face, implying that him and Boa did have something of a fight here. Boa and Koby fought in this situation, or he fought somebody. Maybe he fought the two Amazon sisters and won. That's also a possibility as well. But I think that this makes Koby look pretty good. Whether you think he lost to Boa or not, he's basically the last one standing. He's kind of like the guy that's in charge of the pacifistas. And he held his own against the Amazons. I like this from Koby, and it does seem that he did notice when Boa was going to use her perfume kick on him. It doesn't really look like he was going to react, but he did seem to perceive the attack. So interesting little notes for Koby there. And I don't think it's really that far-fetched to think that if Koby doesn't call off S-Hawk and S-Snake, I don't think it's that crazy to believe that Koby takes down Boa with the help of the two Seraphim, especially given some of the dialogue we get later. We then cut to Blackbeard's interaction with S-Hawk, which is the topic of hot debate. See that when Blackbeard was looking for Boa, he stumbled into the forest, and some of his men were getting attacked. They're like, save us, Commodore Teach. Nothing works against this one, obviously, because the flame is on, the Lunarian DNA S-Hawk possesses. But who's to say that he would have even been damaged by these fodder anyway? Blackbeard then says, whoa, you're kidding me. White hair, brown skin, black wings. S-Hawk then takes that menacing pose. He says, hey, what gives? Did that one kid beat you all? And he sees the PX when S-Hawk starts a slash. So S-Hawk started the slash and Blackbeard sees the PX and he's taken aback by this. So Blackbeard is completely like caught by surprise by the situation of a pacifista that looks like this, that he took out all the men. So he's kind of just trying to deal with the situation here and understand what's happening. We then see that S-Hawk cut a giant slash through the mountain, and Blackbeard says, is that a pacifista then, as the slash is taking place? As he was thinking about it and everything. And then you see a scream, which we assume is from Blackbeard. Now, the anime makes it look like Blackbeard was slammed through this mountain and buried underneath rubble. I never got that impression when I first read the manga, although when you do look at the panel here, it says blasted, they've got a little pacifista kid. It does look like there's rocks falling by Blackbeard. And when you understand the layout of Amazon Lily, the village is located within the mountain. Like on the inside of the mountain, you got to go through that hole. So since they started outside and ended up inside, it actually does seem to be the case that he was pushed through this mountain. So S-Hawk actually looks like kind of a beast. And I didn't pick up on that upon first read. Now, do I think it was as bad as the anime made it seem? Do I think he was probably buried? I don't know if all that took place. He probably just blocked the attack, obviously attacked in land because he'd be bleeding or something. So he obviously blocked it, but him being pushed back is still impressive for S-Hawk. Obviously Blackbeard though isn't prepared for this situation, wasn't using his devil fruits, either of them, to counteract the slash or throw any kind of counterattack until we progress. This is just par for the course with him. He's always getting fucking attacked at the beginning when he's got his guard down and reckless at the beginning of a fight. Law did it. Luffy did an impulse down. So this is just another example. And you see that it looks like S-Hawk launched another attack. I initially thought that this was Blackbeard blocking Mountain Slash as well, but I do think now it's probably a second attack that S-Hawk just seemed to follow up with. So he started with a long range and then close the distance. And Blackbeard very impressively actually uses just straight up armament hockey here. So a lot of people think Blackbeard doesn't have hockey or doesn't have good hockey. It's nothing to slouch at. Obviously we don't know the specifics of it. Will he have conquers or not? We don't know for sure. I think it's probable he will, but him blocking that slash is pretty impressive for people that thought his hockey was going to be some trash. He says that this guy's huge and Blackbeard's face is visibly distressed. Now people think like, oh, Blackbeard's like Blackbeard is just a very dramatic character. There's dramatic characters in One Piece, like Kizaru, very dramatic. Blackbeard, very dramatic. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're in severe danger, but Blackbeard understands that this kid's pretty strong and immediately calls out Black Hole. So Black Hole serves to basically spawn in a hole on the ground that pulls everything into it. So the town gets pulled in. Everything in that radius gets pulled into the hole that's on the ground. So this is still impressive for S-Hawk to have gotten away. Black Hole Liberation is where he repels all the things that he sucked in. He does not do that here. So I think as soon as he saw S-Hawk get dipped, there was no real reason to do that. So he does Black Hole and S-Hawk is now nowhere to be found. Now we found out in Egghead, S-Hawk avoids the stronger opponent. So S-Hawk got spooked by this, realized Blackbeard was strong and dipped away, wasn't prepared to fight him at that time. It is kind of impressive though that S-Hawk was able to get away from this black hole. I've mentioned this before, it's a nice little speed feat. He got away from it, got out of the radius, and seemingly escaped Blackbeard, something that other characters in the series have not been able to do. But Blackbeard clearly wasn't in any danger of being defeated by S-Hawk. He just had a situation where he was taken aback by this random odd looking pacifista and sent him away with Black Hole. Now we can put the bow on it, bring it all together. We talked about the Koby instance, but now we have this situation where Boa, who was about to kick Koby, got grabbed by Blackbeard in the process of the kick. She was off guard by this. She wasn't obviously expecting Blackbeard, but this is actually still pretty impressive from Blackbeard regardless, that he was able to get over to her, close the distance from where he was, and grab her and choke her by her neck while she was in the process of sending an attack at Koby, and without her being able to detect his presence. But at the end of the day, it is off guard. So he laughs. He says, "Snake Princess." She says, "Unhand me, you filthy creature." He's nullified her power and he is choking her, and we see visible blood. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Blackbeard's attacks and physical prowess is very, very impressive given his Yami, because the Yami essentially gives him infinite gravity, which can manipulate the mass of his body, which gives him essentially infinite weight. That might be hyperbole. Obviously, I don't know if it's extending to an infinite amount. Obviously, there's going to be thresholds based on his stamina and what he could handle. But it's a situation where that's why Ace was highlighting how hard the chop was from Blackbeard, why his hits hurt so much, and that's why he's easily able to compress Bo's neck and make her start bleeding from her mouth from a simple grab. And you can visibly see, obviously, the darkness is being used when he's choking her. Blackbeard then says, so I guess the Pirate Empress title wasn't just for show. Now this flies under the radar, but this is pretty interesting given that when Luffy was named the 5th Emperor, he said he's not ready for that title yet. And he is calling Boa somebody that's worthy of the title of Empress, which could be interpreted as, you know, a Yonko. He views her as somebody that's very formidable as a foe. It's a nice little Boa hype. Blackbeard says, look what you've done. You've turned all my idiots into stone. Koby says, what can I do? Everyone's made of stone now. And Blackbeard says, I've been hoping to get your powers. And Boa says, this power is nothing without my beauty. Kill me and all your followers will remain petrified. The next wielder of the fruit cannot undo the spell. Koby then says, Boa Hancock's toughness is beyond anything I imagined, so he's stronger than they thought, stronger than the Marines seemingly thought with their mission reports. And again, it does beg the question, what would Blackbeard do with this fruit, given that, from all we know, it's tied to somebody's beauty? Blackbeard's obviously not the best looking guy. How would he use this fruit effectively? Does that mean that there's another way to utilize this fruit that Boa does not know about, that we don't know about? I think that's very likely. Blackbeard says, this isn't getting us anywhere, Koby, the hero. You helped me out at Rocky Port. Thanks to you, I was able to topple Wang Zi, making me the boss of Pirate Island. So another very underappreciated piece of dialogue here. So overarching, they're in a standoff here where they're kind of trying to negotiate and nothing's happening. But the fact that Blackbeard gives Koby praise for helping him topple Wang Zi really begs the question, how strong was Wang Zi? Don't forget, this was a Blackbeard that had already defeated Marco at this point, or it's going to be sometime around that period. And we know from Marco's own statement that it seemed that Blackbeard having both devil fruits was why they lost, implying that Blackbeard kind of just squad wiped them by himself when push came to shove, implying that it wasn't all that difficult for him to do so either. Now we have him say, thanks to Koby, he was able to topple Wang Zi. Now Wang Zi was part of the Rocks Pirates. We haven't got much about him so far, but the fact that he was the king or boss of Pirate Island speaks volumes to how strong he potentially was. Now we don't know if this meant that Koby just, you know, bypassed some kind of hack, or maybe there was just no way to get to Wang Zi unless Koby had done something. We don't know if it directly correlated to a one-on-one fight or in combat, but it's something to take note of for the future. If we ever do get that flashback to Rocky Port, don't be surprised if Wang Zi enters a lot of top 30 lists. Blackbeard then says, if I let this woman go, do you think she'll play nice and turn my men back? Koby says, I need her to put my men back too. And Boa says, if you both leave without trouble, I'll do that. But Blackbeard is not too keen on believing her. He says, no, you're lying. I let you go and you'll turn us to stone next. And that's the end of it, ain't it? It's impossible for any man not to fall under your spell. So obviously he doesn't know about Luffy, and obviously, you know, he's not realizing that Koby also avoided this shit too. And Blackbeard just decides, shit, I guess I'm gonna have to kill her. Which kind of speaks to like how disposable the Blackbeard pirates are to him. Like Vasco Shot and Katarina Devon, some of his commanders are caught up in this, and he's like, fuck it, I gotta sacrifice him. But also, he's implying that nothing is gonna be able to break out of Bo's abilities. Could this tell us that Haki cannot bypass Bo? If she turns you to stone, you're fucked. You cannot use Haki to get out of it. Seems likely. I've heard rumblings of a statement that implies this anyway, but I could not find it. But it is very interesting when we get into Boa in versus debates. Koby then starts freaking out, and of course, Rayleigh saves the day. Rayleigh says, you know, I expected a naval siege, but not one bold enough to change the shape of the island. I'm sorry for getting here late, Hancock, because S-Hawk obviously cut the mountain, and then obviously Blackbeard's black hole, you know, started crushing up the town. Changing the shape of the island might have been a subtle hint to him saying that he didn't think they were going to send an admiral, because who usually changes the shape of the island from the Navy? The admirals. Blackbeard starts starting. He's like, Dark King Rayleigh. Obviously, we see his face. He's very distressed. This is a very, very bad predicament for Blackbeard. So a lot of people think like Blackbeard's fraudulent for this situation, but I'm going to break it down and tell you exactly why he isn't. So with the statement that he just made about if he lets Bo go, they're fucked. Like he's not confident in any realm that he is going to be able to get out of this, the devil fruit ability. And he is somebody that studies devil fruits and wants this devil fruit. So I would reckon that it's probably very accurate what he's saying. He now is faced with Rayleigh, So even if, because we obviously get the statement later, Rayleigh says he couldn't have beat Blackbeard at this time. So we know that, Blackbeard is stronger than Rayleigh for sure. Even if that is true, because he has Boa to deal with, he'd essentially have to fucking fight off Rayleigh with one hand, which is just not going to be plausible, or try to kill Boa before Rayleigh could close the distance. So he's going to leave himself open for a slash from Rayleigh. He's going to have to try to block with one hand. And if fucking Rayleigh gets over there and Blackbeard's forced to start fighting with both hands, he has to drop Boa, which puts him basically in a deathlock because he's going to get turned to stone by her. So he has a terrible situation. So it's very plausible that Rayleigh and Boa could have actually won this encounter. Like, people forget that. Like, they act like, oh, Blackbeard left an encounter that's like a foregone conclusion. No. He just explained why it's so dangerous, and now I am. Rayleigh says, hey, you Whitebeard's cabin boy, this isn't very mature of me, but I never liked you anyway. Undo the petrification, Hancock. I'll mediate this situation. Nobody here is to overstep their bonds. Just behave yourself and quietly leave the island. So Rayleigh coming over there like a conqueror, flexing conqueror's hockey, and just walks over there like a don and spoke it how it was. And Blackbeard, obviously with the predicament I've laid out, and also just a great respect for Rayleigh seeing him firsthand in his primacy and what he was capable of, follows suit. He was in a bad situation anyway. In this situation, he gets his crewmates back, and he gets to take Koby with him, who he's going to use to liaison a king position with the world government, or that's what he wanted to do before obviously Aokiji explained what it was with Sword. But this ends up leading to trading in Koby essentially for Garp. Garp is probably worth a lot more than fucking Koby, so what he wants to do is much more plausible now. We cut back to the present day, and Rayleigh and Shaggy were talking about it. They're saying, I'm just glad everyone's alive. Thank you, Rayleigh. Says Boa, who's laying down, and Boa is actually damaged as well to her head, which is interesting. Some talk will be had here, but Shaggy says progress always causes trouble for someone. Vegapunk Sea Prism Stone paddle ships mean the Calm Belt isn't as safe for us as it was before. Navy's siege, their weapons, Blackbeard's arrival, I thought there was no saving us, says Gloriosa. Rayleigh says, quite frankly, it was only the particulars of the situation that made it possible to save her. At my age, I couldn't have possibly won in a head-to-head fight against Blackbeard. So exactly, Rayleigh is calling out exactly what I said. It was the particulars of the situation that led to Blackbeard leaving, but still show respect to Rayleigh from this. He walked over there like a don and handled business. So then here we get more emphasis on Boa having bandages on her head. Now, you might just chalk this up to it being damages from Blackbeard, but Blackbeard didn't hit her. Blackbeard just was crushing her neck, but obviously it's going to be hard. Like, they're going to put bandages on her neck. I don't know what you want to say, but an agenda could be pushed that in that time where there was an off-screen encounter where Koby was bloodied, Koby and Boa had a fight. Now, when you go back and comb through it, it looks to me like the markings on her head, the wound to her head, came when Blackbeard grabbed her. That's when it first appears, but like I said, all he does is grab her. You see it visibly, the wound on her head, though, while he's choking her in both pictures. Does that imply that she got that wound before being grabbed, or is that just Oda trying to tell us that whatever happened with this grab somehow did affect that? It also could have been the Seraphim. We don't really get to see what Boa's Seraphim as Snake did during this whole period of time, so potentially she was fighting with her. Maybe, given some of the dialogue we get, or obviously S-Hawk, but I don't think it was S-Hawk, because my interpretation was always that S-Hawk left Blackbeard, kind of just got over there and was getting prepared to start slashing people, slash some of the fodder, and then Koby shut him down to stop the situation when people were already turned into rocks. So I don't think S-Hawk and Boa really had any fighting. What do you guys think, though? Let me know below. But either way, I think this was a very interesting interaction, and I hope I've laid it out well to you guys. You guys have a better understanding than you did before watching. So, with that said, drop a like on the video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.